Roar! Hello and welcome to Midnight Readings. Today we'll be reading Night Falls on Paradise, written by Dakine. Hope you all enjoy. The first alicorn was born with a horn and a pair of wings. If Luna's memory of the story was correct, legend had it that she leapt out of the ashes of the Great Plains at the base of Full Mountain after a scorching fire. Her wings spread like an angel. The ponies hailed her, proclaiming her a queen. Her name was Soul, though later she became known as Celestia. Of course, actually being alive and present way back then, she knew that it was simply folk being folks, spinning something out of nothing. She would have known if her sister was born of fire, and not from a womb of a mare, like all other ponies, just as she knew that she had not sprouted into existence from the cap of a mushroom, or some other such nonsense. She knew that the scene of Celestia's nativity was not that of a flaming field. It was instinctual, but she liked to imagine, visualize what such an event would have looked like, feel the heat of the flame, etc. Such was the mind of a dreamwalker. It was all just good food for thought, as it were. It was probably very different in feeling than what she felt now. Her fur was slick with sweat, damp against her clammy skin. The hooves that had supported her graciously for over 1,500 years were collapsed under her, completely devoid of strength. Her head felt dull, and her chest heavy. There was a reason for her fatigue. Today she had lost a friend, and gained an enemy. Time. Previously, time was something that happened to other ponies. She, an alicorn, was unbound by its chains, free to stride the lengths of time unrestricted. But time's arrow was without bias, and now, without the cloak of immortality on her back, she was in its path, just like everyone else. She wasn't even sure how they dealt with it. Maybe they found solace in the presence of their loved ones. Maybe they prayed to Celestia and her to preserve their souls. Maybe they didn't deal with it at all, ignoring it as if it were a pleasant fiction. That's what she wished to do. But her current proceedings were the bearer of no fruit. Who knew ignoring one's future could be so difficult? Luna, you have that look on your face again. A white, warm, furry body pressed up against hers. That look that says, I'm down in the dumps. You don't wear that look well, sister. She turned her head to meet the gaze of her sister. Celestia's mane was pink, her straightened locks all tied up back into a ponytail, with a cutesy little hairband. Her coat was well trimmed, and her barrel was clothed in a blue button-down shirt, patterned in floral designs. I wear it better than most. I'm surprised you even noticed. Luna smiled sourly. It was just like her sister to come and barge into her space, on grounds of trying to cheer her up, for she knew of no other viable reason for her sister's intrusion. A white hoof entered her vision, and popped her on her nose, making her eyes cross. She could almost feel the smile on Celestia's face. I can still read you like a book. You're still my little Lulu after all. After a moment, Celestia continued. Even after missing so much of our time together, you haven't changed all that much. Besides getting bigger, that is. You were never quite the master of stoicism. You thought you were, though. She brushed Celestia's hoof away from her nose, a blush adorning her face. Why must you bother me? There's plenty of space on this beach besides right here. Luna waved her hoof about her, gesturing to the sand stretching, widthwise, as far as the eye could see. Celestia giggled, pulling herself closer. Well, I figured you were keeping this spot warm for me. She pressed her hoof on Luna's chest, a smile on her face. And besides, I didn't see any pony else here to keep me company. I would rather not be alone. I'm sure you could find some pony else if you tried hard enough. But why look when I already have some pony? Celestia reached both her hooves around Luna's neck, pulling their heads together. If Celestia cared about her sweaty coat, she didn't show it. What if some pony doesn't want to be around any pony else? She struggled, hoisting herself away from her clingy sister. Her hooves quaked faintly underneath her, but held firm. A quick shake dislodged the wayward flecks of sand still clinging to her. Celestia sighed. "You were always such a grump, Lulu." She paused. A cute grump, but a grump nonetheless. Luna eyed her sister warily. "I'm not a grump, nor am I cute." "Are too, Lulu. You were a better grump when you spoke in tongues, though." She narrowed her eyes, her brows furrowed inward. "Thou knowest damn well that our speech was the dialect of the time." Celestia giggled once more. "Looks like you still got it in you." "I would be hard-pressed to forget it." She moved over several hoof lengths and lowered herself back down to the sand, facing the black, blasted wall at the top of the beach. She barely restrained any warmth from the fading sun. Great, now she was cold again. Why did her sister have to be so warm? She watched from the corner of her eye as Celestia stood up, keeping her fixed with a warm smile all the time. "Care to walk with your sister, Lulu?" "Actually, Sally, I would prefer to remain right where I am. It's quite comfortable." Lies. It was cold and the sand was getting stuck in her coat, but she couldn't show any weakness to her sister. She waited for a response. Silence. That's never good. "Cold!" She nearly leapt out of her fur as a torrent of icy ocean water flooded over her, leaving her a mushy pile of wet coat and anger. Luna felt the caress of warm breath on her. "You were always such a terrible liar, Lulu." "This transgression must be paid for in blood," she thought. "You don't even realize what you started, O sister of mine." Celestia received no warning before a wave of similar size rose from the ocean, sweeping her off her hooves and leaving her sprawled, spread-eagled in the sand. She stared at her sister. Her fur was matted down, and her hair was undone, spread around everywhere in small pink tendrils. Her shirt was wet and matted down onto her fur. Her face was frozen in a look of shock, her eyes pinpricks due to the cold, no doubt. She looked terrible. Perfect. Luna couldn't help but laugh, her chest lightening up significantly. Her sister just looked so miserable that it was funny. She collapsed next to her sister, her hooves holding her gut in an effort to contain her laughter. But it was to no avail. It seemed her laughter was contagious because soon she heard Celestia join in, her laughs raspy and weak, making Luna laugh even harder. So they delayed, wet as dogs, covered in sand and 100 miles away from civilization, laughing like madmares. They were cold, they were drenched, they were happy. They were together. After a minute their laughter died down to chuckles, and those to giggles. Luna still felt her heart pounding wildly in her chest. Her hooves no longer felt like lead pipes, and her head felt lighter than a feather. Did it work? Luna twisted her head in the sand to meet her sister's eyes. Did what work? Celestia smiled, a twinkle in her eyes. Did I get your mind off whatever it was you were thinking of? Her smile faltered slightly. In the haze born of their childish behaviour, she had forgotten about her previous train of thought. You don't even know what the problem was. I can guess. Celestia rolled onto her back, staring into the fading dusk sky. Time is as fickle as love is. Now that ours is limited, we have to make the most of it. She paused with a giggle. I'm not going to miss the paperwork, though. Twilight will have to learn quick. She put her hoof up to her chin. Or Princess Twilight, I should say. I won't miss the paperwork either. Being a princess is hard. Luna agreed, giggling into her hoof. But if you really want to know how I feel... Luna propped her head up on her hoof. I feel as if I'm wasting my time with whatever I do now. It's like a commodity, and it's... She grabbed a hoofful of sand with her free hoof and let it trickle to the ground, slipping through my hooves faster than sand. Celestia mirrored her pose and spoke with a gentle smile. Then you just have to spend it wisely. She grabbed a hoofful of sand with her magic, forming it into a small hourglass. It hovered in the air for a bit, before dispersing. How does that walk sound now? Celestia stood up and offered a hoof. Luna pondered for a bit. She accepted the hoof, rising to her hooves. If they were going to waste their time on this beach, they were going to waste it well. So she did the only thing appropriate she could think of. Tag, you're it! She booped her sister's nose before taking off, clumsily galloping through the sand. It was dark now, but not late enough for the stars to be out. It was that odd intermediate between day and night. It was dark enough that she couldn't see very far ahead of her. She found that she didn't care in the slightest. All that mattered was the here and now. She cackled as she heard her sister struggle to catch up with her. "Can't catch up, slowpoke!" "You wait and see! I'll show you who's the slowpoke!" Their happy exhilarations echoed off the sheer rock cliffs as they ran off, giggling into the night. Aww! So sweet. That was Night Falls on Paradise, written by Thiese. I hope you all enjoyed, and until next time, keep watching that moon! And a howling thank you to my Patreons.